Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is a topic that I've wanted to give my thoughts on for a while now, and that I've been thinking about quite a bit, especially over the past few months, where it has become increasingly apparent in my life. I did read a script, but after looking back at it, reading, recording, and listening, I decided that it didn't quite fit what I was going for. So the majority of this video is going to be off the cuff. So bear with me. It's kind of embarrassing, but I wanted this to be genuine because if it isn't genuine, there isn't any point in doing it. Anyway, enough introductions. Let's get into this. Loneliness is an interesting and terrible ailment, very human and very essential. It's one of those struggles that empowers itself with every blow, and that's why it's so dangerous. When we're lonely, we're depressed, and when we're depressed, we isolate. Isolation, that's the key. It is the cause and the result as well, which makes the whole thing a tricky predicament, one that, without conscious effort, will take anyone down with them. We keep getting burned. I keep getting burned because I let the fire spread instead of dousing it when the flame was small. It is natural for us to put off these things, to put off self-improvement, because it's scary. We're afraid of what we might find if we go down deeper into ourselves. But with each complacent moment, the disease spreads, and those fears that kept you from going into that place spread as well. They grow stronger, they grow bolder with each moment that you aren't acting upon them. They are growing. Those feelings, those dark emotions, they thrive in the recesses, in the folds of a person's psyche. Because in those places, out of sight, out of touch, out of mind, they are free to influence you without being challenged. Because they are inherently illogical and they are inherently dysfunctional, they need to be quarantined within a person in order to exist. They can't interact. Because if they interact, they will be proven wrong. And they know that, which is why they hide themselves away. Because when they're hidden away, and it is only their influence that shows, they don't have to answer to any sort of standard. They are simply inevitable aspects, as they like you to believe, of your life. That is why their tactics are precautionary. Fear strives to drive a person not to do something, to avoid something, to avoid contact, to avoid others, to basically just avoid. That is the only way fear can exist, by farming false assumptions. The assumption that if you talk to so-and-so, they will reject you, they won't accept you, they won't understand you, what you're saying. But almost always, it's better than we assume. When we actually talk to those people, they're more understanding than we thought, because they're self-conscious too. They understand. And I know it is difficult. It is scary to dig deep, because you don't know where that vein will lead. You don't know the full extent of the issue. We don't want to go there because we're afraid that the issue will be incurable, that the sickness is not a weight on our back, but our back itself, that it's part of us, and we don't want to discover that it's part of us. We're afraid of what we will find, and so we lock ourselves away. Mental isolation and physical isolation, they go hand in hand. They are two sides of the same coin. Loneliness, true loneliness, is very painful. And I don't think I need to explain to any of you how it feels. The weight of it, the way it binds and twists a person. I don't think I need to explain any of that. So I'll just get into my experience with it. First, let me sort of paint a picture for all of you so you can have context while following along. Right now I live on a farm. It's grassy, it's beautiful, very lush, very rural, and as you can imagine, there aren't many people around. Well, we have plenty of cows, but they're hardly friend material. We live several miles away from just about anything, and to get anywhere I need to bike because I don't have a car. I'm trying to get my license, but that process has been slowed down by a lot of complications, including my dad's car breaking down and just in general, my parents not having enough time to get in the car with me and get those driving hours that are required to take the exam so that I can finally be mobile, because until then, I am pretty much stuck here, unfortunately. And we don't make very much money, so even if I did get my license, I wouldn't be able to pay for a car. And in order to get money, I would need to get a job. And in order to get a job, I would need to get a car. And in order to get a car, I need a job, and so on and so on. So I'm sort of in this rut in my life where I feel trapped. And it's frustrating and scary waking up each morning and there's nothing you can do. You're just trapped in this spider's web that is eating you alive. I feel like I'm going crazy most of the time. I don't know what it is about people that makes me cringe, that makes me tense up like a rusted machine when they approach me. I believe it's learned behavior. As a child, I was actually fairly outgoing. I was the class clown. I was pretty well liked, I think, despite being something of a loner outside of school. I only had one friend who I would visit every so often, and thank God for him. There is a recurring train of thought for me wherein I question not exactly how people think of me, but how they remember me. I think the two are a bit different. Memories are interesting. They're a mixture, a blend of the external world and the internal world. A memory is what happens when we take in information and filter it through ourselves. And again, they're always changing. Each time we call upon them, they are altered ever so slightly. So, how others remember us says as much about who we are in general as it does about who we were in that moment, because it's based largely in part by how we've acted in the past. And I wonder, when they're thinking about me, is it good? I wonder if I'm good in their mind. In those thoughts, I mean. We all have reservations, things we don't voice, etc. And we're all filled up with those at all times. Little versions of one another that live inside us and are embodied by our past perceptions. A little us. But I wonder, is that tiny me a friendly voice, or do they hurt to think about? Is remembering them painful? I really hope not. I hope I made their inner worlds a better place. I want to think that I gave them a kind voice. I think about them a lot. People from my past. Teachers, kids who weren't kids anymore. I was one of them. Well, no, I was like them, but I was never one of them, not knowing what to grab or what to throw away, which direction to go, how to get those faces to ignite. It is like a fire when people open up. Not nervous, just with nothing to hide. I always wanted to have that power. I always wanted to be that spark. A guy who can pry open a skull and just watch the fireworks. I could do it sometimes, not so much with words. As you can tell, I'm not an exceptional speaker. But I always wrote fairly well, I think. I'm no genius, but I think that was one of my skills. And still is. It's exciting to see a mind change like that, in an instant. Sometimes it happened with students, my peers at the time, but not as often. I didn't connect well with them, my classmates, people my age. Sometimes I feel like I was always an old man. We went to the same school, we did the same work, but it was different. It wasn't the same. We weren't the same. I was a different kind of person. I liked them, but I wasn't like them. I wasn't ever asked to go anywhere. I was alone all the time when I wasn't at school. I had my family, but I'm sure many of you relate. It wasn't the same. I love them, of course, but they didn't have what I wanted or what I needed. I needed a friend, to be blunt. I needed someone who didn't have any obligation to me to take an interest in who I was. As a teenager, I really, really strived to get that validation. As young people are, they need others to confirm their thoughts about themselves because they're still developing. They thirst for that praise, that pat on the shoulder that lets them know, hey, you're going in the right direction. You're a good kid. You're someone that is unique. So I wanted that. I wanted to be a person like that, who my peers would look up to and want to be around and go to for whatever it was they needed. Even though at the time, ironically, I was completely engulfed in myself. I would never have been able to handle a following of any sort. Looking back, it's obvious to me, but at the time, the desire was real, the want was real. There were people who liked me when I was around, and I'm thankful for them, very thankful, actually. But I needed a friend, not just someone that liked me. Plenty of people are nice and cool, they're nice guys. They think you're a nice guy, but you're not fleshed out. You're not someone to them. You're not a person almost. You're in a different category. Sort of like an extra in a movie, a faceless prop in the surrounding world. Because you really don't know anything about them. If you don't know anything about something, the essence is lost to you. You can't sniff it out until you understand it or until you observe it. And with so many things in this world, we just don't observe it because we don't think it's worth observing, like ants walking up their hills. We don't think, well, most of us anyway, we don't think about their life and their aspirations. We don't even assume they have any. It's like that. There are individuals that you speak to that you know, and there are individuals that paint the background of your life. You're more like a part of it all, of everything. They don't look at you and see a universe, as they would with, say, their mother or their father or a lover. They look at you and see the universe. That's the big difference. People are like that. They need the context, that fermentation of knowing in order to fully grasp something in their life. Otherwise, it's all just a poster on a wall or a desk filled with things, or a door, or a hedge, or any number of miscellaneous objects and people that move in and out of your perception and you don't even perceive them. They're thrown away. Those memories are not deemed useful to you. They are just things, just emptiness. Really, it's all empty before we put ourselves inside. In school, I wanted that. I wanted to be colonized by someone, for someone to get under my skin, if that makes sense. Or, better yet, to get under someone else's skin. I wanted to set up shop in their skull and be the friend of all their selves, of all their masks, and really know them not as part of our universe, but as a universe in and of themselves. But years went by, and I suppose it had a lot to do with where I was, my past, where I grew up, and how I learned to be, and all that, yada yada yada. But that's a whole nother story. As time went on, I never ended up going out. I never really had fun with others. I never really talked to anyone, like I said, outside of school. The last time I went to a friend's house was in sixth grade, and he was the only friend I ever went to play with regularly as a kid. He was a good guy, a good kid. I want to thank him one day in person. I want to thank a lot of people, and it's silly, but most of them don't even know what they did. They'd probably look at me and ask, what? Did I do something? Or something along those lines. But they'd say you're welcome and everything and be on their way. Probably confused, understandably, but I'd know. There are a lot of good people in this world, and when I see a good person, I want them to know. I want them to know they're good, somehow. It's a difficult thing to do, because so many fantastic individuals are so tortured and they're so imprisoned by the chains of their own making. Their anxiety, their self-doubt, their past, all of those things that keep people from seeing the light inside themselves and from really coming to terms with their own potential. I want to let them know so that they don't get swept away. and I know it's an emotional thing. It's all emotional at the end of the day. It's a personal desire, but I want them to keep being good. And maybe I can't do that because, of course, it is personal. And I dwell on them so much more than I should. Those good people, those strangers that I want to meet. I miss a lot of people, and I haven't even met half of them. It's weird to say, but it's true. That's where the weight comes from, I think. The weight in my chest. That loneliness. Maybe you have felt it too. That lump, the aching. In my mind, it's those kind souls, trying to tell me something, but they can't. They don't know me yet, and they're afraid they'll never know me. And so am I. I'm afraid that I'll never know them. And each one is trying to get me out of this cage I'm in. They're trying to shake me up, to get me out of this room, so that they can know me, and that's the weight. Them sitting on my potential, like I mentioned before. We need to realize our own potential. And so the potential of knowing them is trapped inside me, like a tumor. It's made of me, but it's part of me that is obstructive. And it is a representation of an obstruction. And they knock on the door, and they try to come in. They try to get me to let them in, so I can go out of my way and meet people and meet them, those people, those future friends, those future peers, those future teachers, those future students. And they're knocking on the door, but I'm too afraid to open it. That's the key. I don't think any of us have to be alone. I don't think any of us need to be invisible. I don't think any of us need to stay in this place where the carousel just turns and turns and turns, and you look around and there's no one there, and there's just you every day. And you wish someone would come and sit with you and listen to the music and have fun, but no one ever does. I realize that it's my fault and it's my responsibility. I want to let you know, if you're someone who's alone and you feel helpless and you feel like there's nothing you have you could offer anyone, comment below and we can talk about it. That connection, even though it's over the internet, it's not direct. It's a powerful thing, knowing that there's someone out there who shares the same burden. And we can get there together. And I promise, one day we won't be so alone. Love is something that you make for yourself. It's not something you look for. It has to be mutual. People who are alone, people who are hurting and suffering, it's because of them. I know that. I came to terms with that. And I know that the only way I'm gonna get through this is if I take on the weight of being and accept that obligation to myself, to my future selves, to my past selves who floundered and died under that lamp, that same lamp that I'm under now. I have an obligation to them to fix this. We all do. Every single lonely person out there watching who wants a friend more than anything, who wants to live more than anything, to really be. Just like all of those people we fantasize about being, probably don't exist. There's no life like that. There's strife in every existence. That's the truth. We can reach for it. And by reaching for it, we can find what we're looking for. I know it. All it takes is a willing heart. And we can do anything. We can go anywhere. We can finally break free. And I want to break free, and I know so many of you do too. And I know it's hard. That invisible wall that's there, that blocks us from walking the path we want to, from really letting ourselves be who we are. It's hard getting around that because we don't even understand it. We don't know why we can't do it. We know what we should be doing, but we don't know how to get around this thing, this block in our mind. It's funny. Well, not really funny. It's actually kind of depressing now that I think about it. I wrote myself a note, I think it was sophomore year, for health class, I wrote myself a note to give my future self, and the day of graduation, they handed those letters back. And I had completely forgotten, like I'd hoped to, what I had written there. And I'm sitting there, next to my classmates, so many of which I never even tried to talk to. I never even tried to reach out to. There weren't worlds in those chairs, just bones and flesh. And I sat there next to those strangers, and opened it, and I cried. I don't have it with me, but it said something along the lines of, remember to put yourself out there. Don't waste your life. And I looked at that and I knew I failed that, whatever age I was, 15-year-old kid who, even then, he just wanted to get out of that shell, to be that person he wanted to be, and to go experience life and to be 15 and not be alone anymore. And I cried because I failed him. And it's one thing to fail, and it's one thing to fail yourself, but to fail your past self, there's something to that. I don't remember my state of mind. I don't really remember what I was like, but I remember being there. I remember the experience, and I remember what I wanted, and I trusted myself to do that, to make that change for both of us, so we could finally be who we wanted to be. And I couldn't do it. I failed him. I failed us. But that's why I want to tell everybody listening, please, 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 don't wait. Don't wait for who you will be to become who you are. If you don't do it, they won't. No one is going to magically make you into this perfect person. I made that mistake. I waited. Don't wait. Never wait. Don't wait. What are any of us waiting for? We need to stop stifling ourselves. I'm gonna make a change. And not tomorrow. I'm not gonna rely on my future self. I made that mistake before, and it failed miserably. To every lonely person out there, please listen. I know it's difficult, and I know you may be bitter. I never really grew bitter, but I know many of you have, and I don't blame you. It's natural to have your mind glazed over, to feel defeated, especially when this idea of powerlessness has been reinforced time and time again. But it doesn't have to be this way. We can make that good person, that good little person that's in the people we know. We can make them, and we don't have to hide anymore. None of you have to hide anymore. Please, stand up and know that with trust and dedication and love, one day you will be free.